I woke up to the soft hum of notifications on my phone. I reached for it, half expecting the screen to be lit with birthday messages, maybe a sweet note from Isla. 35 wasn't a milestone, but it wasn't nothing either. It was the kind of age that begged for a small gesture, breakfast in bed, a kiss before work, even a whispered happy birthday over the sound of a toothbrush. But when I checked the screen, there was nothing. A few app alerts, a spam email, not a single message from her. I stared at the ceiling for a moment, counting the cracks in the paint like they might distract me from the hollowness sinking into my chest. This wasn't new. The last 2 birthdays had slipped by the same way, quiet, forgettable. I had told myself back then that she was just busy, overwhelmed, distracted. But this morning, the silence didn't feel like distraction. It felt like distance. It felt deliberate. I made my way into the kitchen. She'd already left for work. Her half-finished coffee sat beside the sink, lipstick mark faint but present on the rim. Her plate was spotless in the dishwasher, but mine was untouched on the counter. She'd scrambled eggs. None for me. No note. No card. No sticky note on the fridge like she used to leave when we were still trying. Nothing. I dressed and went into the office, trying to shake the weight in my chest like it was something I could shrug off. But the whole day crawled past in a blur. My coworkers must have sensed something. Around lunchtime, a few of them, mostly the marketing crew, dragged me out for pizza. It was nice, loud, simple. There was a cheap little candle stuck in a slice of tiramisu, and they sang badly, off-key, like people who didn't know me well but still cared enough to try. I smiled, laughed, even. But it wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was to come home and find Isla waiting with a cake or a smile or something, anything that said, I remembered. Instead, the house was still. No streamers. No dinner on the stove. Just an empty living room and her absence louder than ever. The next day, my cousin Eli showed up. He had a chocolate cake in one hand and a 6-pack of beer in the other. We sat on the patio like we used to before life got so damn complicated. The breeze was light, carrying the scent of early spring, and for a while, the quiet didn't feel so heavy. So, he said, digging into a slice of cake. Where's Isla? I didn't look at him. I just tapped my phone, screen lighting up with unread messages from clients, apps, random offers. None from her. Probably wine tasting with her sister again, I said. Eli raised an eyebrow. I could feel it without even turning. I laughed lightly, the kind of laugh you give when you're trying to sound okay. She's been doing that a lot lately, I added, as if that explained everything. He didn't push, just sipped his beer and looked out over the yard. Weird, man. I figured she'd be planning something big. 35 and all. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Me too. Later that night, after Eli left and the last bit of chocolate frosting had been scraped from the box, I sank into the couch with my phone and started scrolling. I wasn't even looking for anything specific. Just killing time, trying not to think. But then I saw it. A photo. Isla, her sister Jasmine, and a handful of their friends. On a yacht. They were laughing, wind in their hair, champagne glasses raised in a perfect golden hour shot. Isla wore a white sundress I'd never seen before and sunglasses that cost more than my car's last service. And the caption below? Best birthday ever for my sis. Grateful to everyone who made it possible. Everyone. But me. I stared at that photo like it had insulted me directly. My thumb hovered over the heart icon out of habit, but I didn't press it. My hand dropped to my lap. I just sat there, eyes fixed on her smile, the one I hadn't seen in months. The one she only seemed to wear around everyone but me. I kept reading the comments. Heart emojis. Gorgeous girls. Y'all living your best life. And of course, Jasmine's reply, couldn't have done it without my people. Was I one of those people? Did I even make the list? I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. But the image burned in my mind like a brand. It wasn't the yacht. It wasn't the champagne. It wasn't the money or the photo filters or the fact that she was gone on my birthday. It was the caption. Best birthday ever. I hadn't even gotten a text. I sat there until my screen dimmed, the soft light fading into black. My hands were folded in my lap, fists clenched without realizing. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't busyness. It wasn't exhaustion or oversight. It was choice. She chose not to acknowledge me. She chose not to send a message. She chose not to be here. Not even in spirit. And in that moment, as the silence in the room grew thick and undeniable, I realized something that chilled me more than the loneliness ever could. She didn't forget. She didn't care. And suddenly, neither did I. It came on a Wednesday. The kind of day that just sits there in the middle of the week like a question you don't want to answer. I was on my lunch break at the office, chewing through a dry turkey sandwich and trying to convince myself to finish the spreadsheet I'd been avoiding since Monday. My inbox pinged. Nothing unusual about that. Junk mail, updates from vendors, the usual corporate noise. But this subject line stopped me cold. We split even here. The sender? Isla. I opened it. Attached was a PDF. No greeting. No context. Just a clean, itemized invoice with a title at the top. Jasmine's yacht party, expenses breakdown. It was all there: venue rental, catering, designer balloon arch, champagne packages, even the cost of yacht staff gratuity. The total? $3,200. And right next to it, in bold font like it was some kind of gift to me, a line that read, split, $1,600 each. I reread the attachment 3 times. My eyes trailed down to one particularly grating item. VIP decor package, $425. What the hell did that even mean? Were the balloons dipped in gold? Did they rent swans? I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen, waiting to feel something other than disgust. But it never came. It was just numbness now. Like all the little emotional paper cuts had finally bled me dry, and this invoice was the paper that did the slicing. This woman, my wife, the same woman who hadn't sent so much as a happy birthday text, was now billing me for her sister's birthday party. On a yacht. A party I wasn't even invited to. On the same weekend, she pretended she was wine tasting with Jasmine. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even curse. I just stared at that PDF and started to laugh. Quietly. Bitterly. That kind of laugh that starts in your throat and dies in your chest because there's nothing left to fuel it. That night, I sat on the couch in our two-silent living room, laptop open on my knees, and logged into our joint account. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and for the first time in years, I hesitated. Not because I was unsure, but because I finally understood that this wasn't about fairness. This was about finally drawing a line. So I sent $1. Exactly one. Then, in the notes section, I typed, "I'm not on board." No explanation. No rant. Just that. And then something in me clicked. Like I'd been holding a breath for 3 years and finally decided I didn't need the oxygen if it came from her. I opened another tab and logged into every platform. Netflix? Sign her out. Change the password. Apple Music? Gone. Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, even her overpriced yoga app that streamed live sessions from some beach in Bali. All of it revoked. Passwords scrambled into nonsensical strings. Every login, every subscription, every benefit she'd enjoyed without thanks, reclaimed. Next came the credit card. The one she'd labeled emergency use, but somehow swiped for everything from takeout to facials to boutique candles. I froze it. Just like that. One click. And the screen turned a calm, satisfying shade of gray with the words, "Your card has been successfully locked." I stared at the screen, letting the silence stretch. I didn't feel cruel. I didn't feel petty. I felt clean. Like someone who had finally stopped waiting to be remembered and decided to remember himself instead. An hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, this time from the bank. A fraud alert. "Hi, Mr. Carter," the woman said politely. "We're detecting unusual activity on your secondary card. No fraud." I interrupted, voice even. "Just a man cutting off a parasite." She paused. "Oh, understood. Shall I mark this as resolved?" "Resolved," I said, and hung up. I poured myself a glass of water, not whiskey, not wine, and sat in silence, staring out the window at the street below. A delivery guy rode by on a scooter, balancing someone's dinner in an insulated bag. Probably hers. Probably headed to Jasmine's apartment, where they were still laughing about how clever their yacht party had been. Where no one would mention me. Where no one ever did. That night, I pulled up the food delivery account Isla always used. She'd ordered Thai food, pad cew, tom yum soup, and 3 Thai iced teas. 3. Not 1. Not 2. 3. I didn't need to guess who the third was for. I'd eaten leftover chicken that night. Alone. Lit by the flicker of the TV and the glow of a marriage that had been quietly dying under the weight of one-sided effort. I closed the app. Logged out. Deleted it. The next morning, Isla sent a text. "No, good morning. No warmth, no recognition of what she'd done. Netflix isn't working. Did you change the password? 5 minutes later. Also, my card was declined at the salon. Then, an hour later, after she'd pieced it all together. Are you seriously doing this? And the final blow. This is childish, Jace. You're embarrassing me. Not once did she ask why. Not once did she say, I'm sorry. Not once did she acknowledge the 3 birthdays she'd erased with silence. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The message had been sent long before I clicked freeze card. It wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. Mine. The version of me that once tiptoed around her moods, who paid every bill without question, who waited for scraps of affection like they were enough. That man was gone. He died with that $1 transaction, and in his place stood someone else. Someone who finally understood that love without respect is just a long, slow death. That night, I went to bed alone, but not lonely. For the first time in years, I slept all the way through. No interruptions, no background noise, just peace. At first, she played cute. The kind of cute that's meant to be disarming, as if the years hadn't already shown me the venom that hid under Isla's tone when things didn't go her way. The first text came around noon the next day, simple and seemingly innocent. Is Netflix down? No greeting, no context, just that. 5 minutes later came another. Can you reset Hulu? I think it glitched. Then, a slightly more impatient ping. My card's not working at the salon. Did something happen? I didn't answer. I was at work, but even if I hadn't been, I wouldn't have answered. I was done playing tech support and emotional janitor for a woman who didn't remember my birthday but remembered to bill me for her sister's yacht party. Done being the invisible benefactor of her curated lifestyle. By that evening, the tone had shifted. The emojis were gone. The passive-aggressive politeness disappeared like mist after a storm. Now it was just thunder. Are you seriously doing this? She wrote at 6:14 p.m. This is childish, Jace. 2 minutes later, you're embarrassing me. I stared at my phone, screen tilted in the pale glow of my living room lamp. I didn't type a single word. Just watched the dots appear, then disappear, then come back again. Isla was frantic now, scrambling to control a narrative that was slipping from her hands. I could almost hear her pacing, could see her waving her phone around in front of Jasmine, both of them probably dramatizing my meltdown, as if it were some tantrum rather than a long overdue withdrawal of tolerance. But the real storm hadn't even started. I logged into our phone plan just before midnight. 5 lines total, all under my name, because of course they were. Mine was the one with the credit score. Mine was the name that opened doors. Hers, Jasmine's, even her cousin Kayla's line. All of it rode on my back. I hovered over the account page for a moment, breathing slowly. Then I did it. I canceled 4 of them. Left mine. When I clicked Confirm Changes, it felt like hitting a reset button on my own life. The next morning, my phone vibrated at 7:03 a.m. Isla, are you insane? Her message read. I have no service. Jasmine doesn't either. You cut off our phones? No question marks on mine. Just calm clarity. The kind of clarity that's born when you finally stop apologizing for being taken for granted. I didn't respond. I went about my morning. Made coffee. Toasted a bagel. Watered the plant by the window that I'd forgotten about for 3 weeks because Isla had insisted it was her thing, only for it to sit there withering, unnoticed like everything else under her care. The leaves were drooping, sure, but they were still alive, just like me. On the way out the door, I grabbed the mail from the slot. Bills. A coupon for carpet cleaning. A flyer for a marriage counseling retreat that made me snort out loud. Too late for that. We'd skipped counseling. She always said, we're fine, Jace. You're just too sensitive. But maybe I wasn't too sensitive. Maybe I was just awake now. That evening, after another long day at work and a long drive home, I pulled into the garage and checked my email out of habit. Nothing urgent. Then I noticed a receipt in my trash folder, food delivery, timestamped at 8:37 p.m. the night before. My card. My account. Pasta for 3. Garlic bread. Caesar salad. Wine. That stung more than I expected. I had eaten a microwave burrito at the kitchen counter, too tired to cook and too numb to care. I told myself I wasn't hungry, but the truth was, I just didn't want to sit alone at that table again, pretending the silence between us was comfortable. But Isla, she'd eaten well. With company. Maybe Jasmine. Maybe Kayla. Maybe someone else. Didn't matter. I wasn't there. I wasn't even considered. So I logged in and did what needed doing. Deleted the food delivery app. Changed the password on the shared grocery account. Removed her access to every saved address and payment method. She wouldn't be ordering off my life anymore. The next morning, the text came faster. Wow, you're really spiraling. You seriously need help, Jace. This is financial abuse. That one made me laugh. Loud and bitter. Financial abuse? I'd paid every damn bill in that house for 5 years. Rent, utilities, phone, subscriptions, gifts for her friends, even her mother's birthday weekend getaway. I was the lifeline. And all she had to do was smile, sometimes. But even that had become rare. I let the messages pile up. My phone buzzed all day like a hive of angry bees. But I didn't sweat. I didn't flinch. I just muted the thread and went on with my day. At lunch, I sat with my cousin Eli again. He didn't ask questions, just passed me a soda and said, "You look lighter." I smiled. Maybe because I'm carrying less dead weight. He chuckled. "You sure this doesn't blow up later?" "Probably," I said. "But I'd rather deal with fire than rot." That night, I turned off the lights and sat in the dark for a while. Not out of sadness, just to feel it. The clean slate. The absence of noise. The absence of her. She'd forgotten my birthday. But she remembered to order pasta. For 3. And that told me everything I needed to know. I was reclaiming more than passwords. I was reclaiming myself. It wasn't the silence that surprised me. It was the spin. Isla didn't reach out with an apology. No reflection. No acknowledgement of what she'd done, what she hadn't done. Instead, she went to her mother. And Isla's mother, of course, went to my aunt. And that's how I got the call. Not from the woman who'd ghosted me on 3 birthdays in a row, but from my Aunt Ruth, who meant well, but always stepped in where she didn't belong. "Jace," she began gently, "I heard there's some tension between you and Isla." Tension. That was the word they used for this. "She's devastated," Ruth continued, like she was reporting a death, crying to her mother. "Says you just snapped. Cut off all the accounts. Locked her out. Canceled her phone. Is everything all right?" I pressed the phone tighter against my ear and stared out the window. The world outside looked too normal for what I was feeling. Birds chirping. Someone mowing their lawn. The neighbor's kid riding his bike like life was simple. Did she mention the invoice? I asked. There was a pause. What invoice? Isla sent me a $1,600 invoice for her sister's yacht party, I said. On my birthday. The birthday she forgot. Again. Another pause. Then quietly, "Oh." I could hear her trying to process it. Trying to reconcile the Isla she knew with the one who had weaponized celebration and turned it into a bill. I didn't need her judgment or confusion. I just needed the truth to be out in the world, spoken, real, undeniable. She posted about the party online, I added. Called it the best birthday ever for her sister. Champagne, smiles, a yacht. You know how many birthdays of mine she's missed now? 3. Ruth sighed. Jace. I didn't know. I'm sorry. But Isla wasn't. She wasn't sorry at all. Instead of apologizing, she got busy reframing the story. Her Instagram stories lit up with cryptic quotes. You never really know someone until they stop needing you. Some people are only loyal when they benefit. Protect your peace from manipulators in disguise. I read each one with a growing sense of numbness, like watching someone draw a caricature of you with fangs and horns, then asking the world to mourn her for surviving your evil. Her friends joined in. You're so strong, babe. Don't let toxic people dim your light. You've been through enough. Through enough of what, exactly? Enough free meals? Enough birthday forgetfulness? Enough emotional withdrawal? I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't post counter stories or write a long rant. That would have given it legitimacy. Instead, I let the silence speak for me. But I did talk to someone. Uncle Leonard. He wasn't really my uncle by blood. More like a family friend who'd seen enough life to speak with the weight of someone who'd been burned, built back, and burned again. We met up at a quiet bar downtown, the kind with dim lighting, decent wings, and no one trying to impress anyone. He sat across from me, sipping his beer slowly, eyes sharp. So you finally unplugged the leeches, huh? I didn't need to ask who he meant. He'd always seen through Isla, even when I couldn't. I nodded. She sent me an invoice, I said. Leonard blinked once. For what? Emotional damages? No, I said. For her sister's yacht party, which she planned on my birthday. He set his beer down and leaned forward. Son, peace ain't free. It costs clarity. I sat with that. Clarity. It wasn't rage I felt anymore. It wasn't heartbreak, either. It was this still, heavy clarity that settled deep in my chest like bricks clicking into place. I finally saw it for what it was, not just neglect, not just selfishness, but a consistent refusal to treat me like I mattered. To her, I was a provider, a resource, a name on bills. A default? Yes, to anything she asked for. And when I finally said, no, not even out loud, just in action, she cried to the people she knew would still see me as the villain. I kept hoping for an apology. Some genuine moment where she'd say, I forgot your birthday, and I'm sorry. I thought maybe the silence from her side was guilt, or shame, or internal conflict. But no, it was strategy. She wasn't quiet because she was reflecting. She was quiet because she was plotting a story where I was the one who cracked. The next day, I got a text from her cousin Kayla. Whatever you're going through, I hope you get help. Help? Right. Not one of them ever asked me what Isla did. Not one of them cared that I'd been eating dinners alone while funding someone else's fireworks. That night, I made a list. Not a petty one. A truthful one. All the birthdays she'd missed. All the times I canceled plans to help her sister move or pick her up drunk from brunch. The events I paid for. The medical bill I covered when her mom needed dental work. The nights I held her while she cried over work and the mornings I made her smoothies so she wouldn't skip breakfast again. And then I wrote another list. Shorter. All the things she'd done just for me, without prompting. That one stayed mostly blank. By the time I went to bed, I didn't want an apology anymore. I just wanted distance. The kind of distance that couldn't be crossed with a text or a guilt-trip phone call from a family member. The kind that gave me space to breathe, to exist, to remember who I was before I became the man who made excuses for being forgotten. She didn't text. She didn't call. She showed up. 3 days after the fallout reached a quiet boil, there was a knock on the door. Not loud, not angry. Just 3 quick, firm taps like someone who expected to be let in, no questions asked. I was in the kitchen rinsing a mug when I heard it, and I didn't move at first. I just let the sound hang there in the hallway like it might go away if I waited long enough. But it came again, more urgent this time. Not pounding, just persistence. When I opened the door, Isla was standing there in gym tights and a zip-up hoodie, coffee in hand, like she'd just come from a casual spin class and figured now was a good time to patch up whatever mess she believed I made. Her hair was in a high bun, a few strands loose around her face. She looked annoyed, not remorseful, not apologetic, just inconvenienced. Can we talk? She asked, brushing past me like the house still belonged to her. I didn't stop her. I didn't speak. I just shut the door and followed her into the living room, where she dropped into the corner of the couch like she was settling in for a negotiation. I stayed standing. She looked up at me, took a long sip of her coffee, and crossed her legs. So, she said, drawing the word out like she was already tired of the conversation, have you had your little meltdown now? I blinked. I honestly don't know what I expected her to say, but that wasn't even on the list. Meltdown? I repeated, my voice flat. She shrugged. Jace, come on. Cutting off my phone? Changing passwords? Freezing cards? You locked me out of everything. You embarrassed me. I stared at her for a long time. Long enough for her to shift uncomfortably, though she tried not to show it. You embarrassed yourself, I said quietly. And you're still doing it. She rolled her eyes. All this over a birthday? That's when I laughed. Not a full laugh, just a short, bitter breath that barely made it past my throat. No, I said. This isn't about one birthday. This is about 3. 3 years in a row. 3 years of silence on the one day that meant anything to me. 3 years of watching you celebrate your sister, your friends, your co-workers, and leave me with nothing but a room full of cold air and my own damn thoughts. Her mouth opened like she was about to argue, but I kept going. This is about you using me as your financial safety net, your subscription mule, your emotional fallback. This is about you pretending to be part of a marriage while actually living like a roommate with benefits. That's not fair, she began. No, I snapped, cutting her off for the first time in years. What's not fair is being erased every time I wasn't useful to you. What's not fair is seeing a picture of you on a yacht, smiling with people who don't even know my name, while I sat at home alone eating frozen pizza on my birthday. She had the nerve to look bored. You're being dramatic. I shook my head. No, I'm being honest. Something you should try sometime. She set the coffee down on the table, finally sitting up a little straighter. You never ask for anything, Jace. You never say what you want. You just expect me to read your mind. I stared at her. Exactly, I said. That's why you never thought I mattered. Because I didn't demand things. I didn't make everything about me. I thought marriage was about showing up for each other, not keeping score. But apparently, if I don't invoice my value, you don't recognize it. She folded her arms. So what? You think you're perfect? No, I said. But I used to think I mattered to you. She was silent then. Not because she didn't have something to say, but because, for once, she had no angle, no spin, no performance to give. The old Isla, the one who could twist guilt into an art form, was scrambling for a canvas. And I'd taken all the brushes away. I watched her gather her things, sensing the conversation was over. She stood, not slowly, not rushed, just done. I guess this was inevitable, she said, heading toward the door. I didn't respond. She reached for the knob, then paused. You know, you're going to regret this. I finally spoke, calm and clear. No, Isla, you are. Because you finally met the version of me who knows his worth. She didn't slam the door when she left. Didn't throw a fit or deliver some dramatic exit. She just walked out like it wasn't worth the energy. And that told me everything. No apology. No tears. Just a woman annoyed that her favorite puppet stopped dancing. I stood in the stillness of the living room for a long time after she left, staring at the spot where she'd sat, where she'd crossed her legs and dismissed my pain like it was an overreaction. And I realized something I hadn't let myself believe until that moment. She was never going to see me. Not unless I burned. Not unless I broke. Not unless I snapped into 1,000 pieces and bled loud enough for her to notice. But I wasn't going to do that. Not for her. Not anymore. I turned off the lamp, let the room fall into shadow, and headed upstairs. I didn't look back. I didn't wait for another knock. Some doors don't deserve to be opened again. 2 days passed. Long, quiet hours stretched between the last time I saw Isla and the moment her next attempt landed in my inbox. It was an email, no subject line, no flourish, just a single sentence in the body. I know you're hurting. Let's fix this. I forgive you. Forgive me. I read it twice, then a third time, like maybe my eyes were lying. But there it was, cool, clean text on a white screen. No apology. No admission. Just a performative grace, handed down like a gift I should be grateful for. I didn't reply. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, arms folded, staring at the ceiling as if it might deliver some cosmic explanation for how we'd ended up here. I wasn't angry in the way I expected to be. I wasn't even shocked. No, what I felt was something deeper, sharper, disgust, maybe. Not at her. At myself. Forever thinking that maybe, just maybe she'd understand. Forgiveness, for Isla, was never about accountability. It was about control. It was her way of saying, let's pretend nothing happened, so long as she didn't have to look in the mirror too long. I shut the laptop and stood up. The house was too quiet again, but not in the peaceful way. It was the silence of something vacated, like air after someone has slammed the door. Stillness thick with the echoes of what had been tolerated for too long. Later that afternoon, I logged into my rewards account, the one connected to my frequent business travel. I hadn't touched it in a while. Hadn't needed to. I was saving those points for something we'd talked about doing for years. A trip to Hawaii. Just the two of us. But that trip never happened. It had become another plan lost in her ever-growing list of more important things. But now the account showed a recent redemption. Spa package. 5-star resort. Isla and Jasmine. A girl's getaway. I stared at the screen, the last of my patience unraveling like frayed rope. Those were my points. My nights in hotel rooms, my airport security lines, my back-to-back red ice. She hadn't even asked. Just logged in and took what wasn't hers. I clicked Report Unauthorized Use. Filled out the form. Wrote a short, cold statement. User no longer has consent to access this account. It wasn't just about the points. It was about the pattern. The entitlement. The way she moved through life expecting me to make up for her blind spots and label it love. And I was done playing the fool in her polished performance. I went through everything. Every shared account. Every app. Every convenience she leaned on. Food delivery? Revoked. 2-day shipping? Gone. Shared ride credits? Canceled. Her grocery store loyalty account. Her Ride or Die podcast app. Even the project management tool she'd started using for her side hustle. each one dismantled like a scaffolding I never agreed to build. She'd built her life on top of mine, and now I was tearing it down. No message, no warning, just quiet deletion. I didn't know her an exit interview. That evening, I got another email. A bit longer this time. Still no apology. "I think we're both emotional right now," she wrote. "But I'm willing to look past what you've done. I want us to work. To look past what I'd done." As if reclaiming the air I breathed was some act of violence. As if preserving my dignity required her mercy. I left the message unread after that. And then, the social media campaign began. Instagram stories. Twitter quotes. That curated playlist of emotional ballads she always posted when she wanted sympathy without context. All her followers rallied. People who didn't know the truth, didn't want the truth. Just something pretty to click, like, on. "You've been through so much, girl. He's clearly unstable. Sending you healing energy." They all flooded her comments like a choir with no lyrics. Just noise. I didn't care about them. But then her mother emailed me. That hit differently. Subject line: "Family doesn't quit on each other." The message was short. "Jace, I know this is hard, but she's your wife. Families fight. They disagree. But you don't abandon the people you love. I hope you find your way back to her." I sat with that sentence for a long time. You don't abandon the people you love. But what about when they've already abandoned you? What about when they stopped showing up long before you walked away? I didn't respond to her mother. There was no point. That generation was built on endurance, not happiness. Stay no matter what. Smile through the wreckage. Pretend it's love even when it's just mutual silence with rings on your fingers. I wasn't interested in that kind of legacy. So I let the message sit, then moved it to a folder I'd started. Receipts. Not in a petty way. In a clarity way. A reminder of the lengths people will go to avoid accountability. I turned my phone off that night. No distractions. No guilt. Just me, the hum of my thoughts, and a quiet resolve that had never felt so solid. For years, I thought forgiveness was about being bigger, more patient, more kind. But now I understood something deeper. Forgiveness is not a return ticket. It doesn't require a reset. It doesn't owe you access. It's just acknowledgement and closure. And I was ready for mine. I knew it was coming. The spin. Isla never let a narrative die quietly. Not when there were eyes to catch, sympathy to farm, or a victim role to rehearse. The first clue came through mutuals. A friend from work sent me a screenshot late one night, her Instagram story. Black background. White font. Piano music in the background. Something moody and slow. Caption: "Some people don't value loyalty. But I still believe in love. Even after betrayal." I stared at the screen, jaw tightening. Betrayal. That was her word now. She didn't say it directly. She never did. She was a master of implication. A subtle puppeteer pulling threads just tight enough to shape the pity without naming the villain. But we all knew who the villain was supposed to be. Me. I clicked through a few more stories. Pictures of her from the yacht, filtered just right, champagne in hand, smiling with captions like, "Healing. Growth. Choosing me." One showed her walking along a beach in a sunset I paid for. Another with Jasmine in matching robes at a spa I hadn't even known they'd gone to. And the comments rolled in like waves. "You've been through so much, babe. Proud of you. Some people don't deserve your light. Reclaiming your power." I put my phone down before it ended up cracked against a wall. This wasn't healing. This was image management. This was her trying to rewrite the story before anyone asked questions she couldn't answer. Because if they knew the truth, really knew it, they'd have to reckon with a different version of events. One where I wasn't the emotionally distant husband, but the man who had simply grown tired of being erased. It didn't stop there. The next day, I got an email. From her mom. Again. This one had an attachment. A PDF of some family article she'd clipped from a faith-based magazine. Something about the sacred act of staying. The subject line: "Time heals all wounds." The body? Just a single sentence. "I know this is hard, but she's your wife. Families fight." That sentence again. I read it 3 times. Not because I was confused, but because I couldn't believe how many people were willing to say everything except what happened. Families fight. No. Families communicate. Families apologize. Families don't send invoices for yacht parties and then send curated quotes about betrayal when they get called out for it. They don't spend your birthday posting selfies from somewhere you weren't invited to. That's not family. That's freeloading with a wedding ring. But even so, I didn't respond. I didn't correct her version. I didn't defend myself to Isla's mom or her friends or her growing army of digital sympathizers. I learned something over the last few weeks. Defending yourself to people invested in your silence is like arguing with a locked door. It doesn't matter how right you are. If they've already decided who to believe, they're not listening. They're watching a play they've seen before, hoping for the same ending. I kept receipts, though. Not because I wanted revenge, because I needed reminders. See, the danger in gaslighting isn't the lie. It's the slow erosion of your reality. The way you start to question your memory, your instincts, your boundaries. And I wasn't about to fall into that trap again. So I started saving everything. Screenshots of the yacht post, the invoice, her forgiveness email, the Instagram stories, even her spa booking on my rewards account. All of it in a folder titled, Evidence of Absence. Because that's what it really was. Proof that I had been absent in her life long before I chose to leave it. One night, after a long shift at work, I opened my laptop and scrolled through it all. Just sat there, wine glass in hand, looking at the trail of choices she'd made and the aftermath I had spent years cleaning up. And for the first time, I didn't feel sadness. I felt calm, clarity, like finally seeing the full picture after squinting through a fog of excuses. That weekend, my cousin Eli stopped by. He'd been quiet lately, letting me navigate things my way, but I could see the concern in his eyes the moment I opened the door. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded, stepping aside. Getting there. We sat outside, same patio where he brought cake on my birthday. Except this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was healing. He took a sip of his drink and then said, "She's trying hard to look like the victim." "I know. You planning to say anything?" I shook my head. I don't need to win the crowd. I just needed to walk off the stage. He looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Fair." Before he left, he clapped me on the shoulder. "Proud of you, man, for not taking the bait." "I'm proud of me too," I said. And I meant it. Because I finally understood something that had taken too long to learn. Peace doesn't always come wrapped in applause. Sometimes it comes in the form of no reply. Of letting the fire burn out without throwing more wood on it. Let her rewrite the story. Let them believe what they want. Because I knew the truth. And I was done giving free chapters to people who only skimmed the pages. The letter came on a Thursday. Not an email, not a text, not a voice note wrapped in teary sighs or romantic nostalgia. A real letter. 3 pages, handwritten. Sloppy cursive with occasional smudges where her ink dragged too quickly or where she pressed too hard on the loops of her G's and Y's like she was trying to make a point in pen strokes. The envelope was unmarked, no return address. Just my name in big, looping script. Inside, the paper smelled faintly of her perfume, something floral and expensive, the kind that usually lived in the air between us when she was getting ready for a party or a brunch that I wasn't invited to. I unfolded the pages one by one, setting them carefully on the kitchen counter like evidence in a trial I hadn't agreed to attend. Page 1 started predictably. "We love you. We want you back. We're ready to forgive you whenever you're ready. Forgive me." That same haunting refrain again. The sentence rang like the echo of someone who didn't understand where the damage had come from, only that it now made her uncomfortable. The next paragraph mentioned Jasmine. How heartbroken she was. How confused. How she never meant to disrespect our union, as if my marriage had been some historical landmark vandalized by teenagers. There was no apology, no self-reflection, no acknowledgement of the 1,000 paper cuts that led to this point. Just blanket forgiveness served with the sticky sweetness of moral superiority. Then came the PS. It was short, too short, and it hit like a slap I hadn't braced for. "Jasmine starting a business, and we could really use your help." That was it. Not even a transition. Just a casual note at the end of a so-called olive branch. "By the way, can you fund my sister's next dream project?" I set the letter down and stared out the window. The street was quiet, sun beginning to set behind the rooftops across the way, and for a moment, I just watched the light shift over the pavement. I felt nothing. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just this strange, solid kind of knowing. This was the last straw. Not because of what was written, but because of what wasn't. Because it confirmed what I'd been feeling in the marrow of my bones for the last few weeks, that I wasn't a partner to Isla. I was a source. A sponsor. A man-shaped utility whose silence had become the foundation of everyone else's comfort. And now that I'd pulled the plug, all they had left to offer was confusion and invoices. I didn't throw the letter away. I folded it. tucked it into the same folder where I kept the rest of the proof. The yacht invoice, the screenshot of her forgiveness email, her stories, her mother's notes, her silent birthdays. Then I opened my laptop, typed in a few queries, and started searching for listings. Apartments, condos, short-term leases in cities far enough away to be unfamiliar, but close enough to drive to in one stretch without needing a hotel. Raleigh, Asheville, Charleston. Carolina kept calling to me. I found one. Second-floor walk-up. 2 bedrooms. Unfurnished. Quiet neighborhood. No shared walls. I paid the full lease in one go. No monthly trickles. No hesitation. Done. The next week moved in silence. I didn't answer Isla's texts. I didn't open her emails. I packed when I could, early mornings, late nights. Folded clothes in neat, emotionless piles. Boxed up what mattered. Donated what didn't. I left the kitchen untouched for now. It still smelled like her somehow, lemon cleaner and whatever lotion she used that made the soap slippery for hours afterward. On Friday, I called the locksmith. He'd be coming after I left. To change every lock. To take away every trace of shared history disguised as access. On Saturday, I logged into the home security app and removed her name, her codes, her permissions. Then I turned off her access completely. No more cameras. No more door codes. No more entry. That night, I slept for 5 hours. Then woke, not with panic or dread, but clarity. The kind that burns in your lungs but lets you breathe deeper than ever before. I loaded the last of my things into the car just after dawn. The house stood behind me like a skeleton, familiar, but emptied of warmth. A frame, nothing more. A place where I'd once believed in forever and ended up learning about thresholds. I didn't leave a note. Not on the counter. Not in the mailbox. Not in the old drawer where we used to keep birthday cards we never gave each other anymore. I drove out of the neighborhood with the windows cracked and the radio off. I didn't look back. She wouldn't understand that kind of exit anyway. Not theatrical. Not angry. Just clean. Deliberate. The bridge wasn't burned. It was dismantled. Logically. Silently. One board at a time. The drive to Carolina took 9 hours. Just me, a rental van, a few taped-up boxes, and a playlist that shuffled between melancholy soul and aggressive silence. I didn't rush. I didn't stop for photos or roadside snacks. I just drove. The highway blurred into a ribbon of decisions I couldn't undo, and for once, I didn't want to. I watched the skyline behind me disappear in the rearview, mile by mile, until the only thing left was the hum of possibility. I pulled into the new apartment complex just after sunset. It was nothing fancy, brick exterior, 2 stories, a courtyard with a crooked fountain that gurgled more than it flowed. But it was mine. The lease was in my name. The utilities were in my name. Every room, every drawer, every key belonged to me. No shared accounts. No overlapping baggage. Just a blank space waiting for a life not built on pretending. The unit was small, kitchen barely large enough for 2 people to stand side by side. But it was enough. I dropped the last box near the doorway and let out a long breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The silence wasn't heavy here. It didn't echo with the residue of things unsaid. It was clean, still, waiting to be filled with something real. I unpacked slowly over the next few days. Methodically. Shirts hung one at a time. Books shelved by instinct, not genre. I bought a new mattress, firm, no memory foam, no ghost of someone else's sleep pressed into it. I chose new curtains. Blackout, not because I wanted to hide, but because I wanted peace. Rest. The kind that doesn't ask you to explain why you're tired. Work started the following Monday. A boutique tech firm nestled between a bakery and a bike shop, the kind of place where everyone wore sneakers and kept plants on their desks like badges of balance. My new boss, Maria, was sharp and quick-witted, with a clipboard that never left her side and a memory like steel. During my onboarding, she asked if I preferred Jace or Mr. Carter. Just Jace, I told her. But inside, I smiled at the idea that either name was finally mine again. They gave me a small office. Glass door, clean desk, my name etched in white vinyl on a placard, Jace Carter, systems lead. That nameplate mattered more than I expected. I ran my fingers across it before sitting down, not because it was fancy, but because no one handed it to me. No one else paid for it. No one else claimed it. It was mine. The days passed in quiet rhythm. I went to work. I came home. I cooked simple meals. Stir-fried vegetables. grilled chicken, pasta. No extra portions. No guesswork about what someone else might want. Just one plate, one fork, one glass of wine if I felt like it. I got into the habit of walking in the evenings. The neighborhood was different from what I'd known, less polished, more alive. Kids on scooters, dogs barking at fences, couples laughing on porches that needed repainting. I liked it here. No one knew my history. No one watched me through a lens fogged by Islah's storytelling. Here, I wasn't the man who locked out his wife. I was just the new guy in Unit 2B who smiled politely and kept to himself. One night, maybe 3 weeks after settling in, I got a voicemail. I recognized the number before it finished ringing. Isla. I didn't pick up. I let the message play while I stood over the sink rinsing dishes. Hey, I don't know if this number still works. I saw the transfer on our old phone plan. I figured you were gone, but, she exhaled. I just wanted to know if you're alive. That's all. I don't want to fight. I don't know. It's weird not knowing where you are. I paused with the dish still in my hand. The water kept running. Steam curled up from the basin. Alive? She never asked if I was okay. Never asked what she did. Never said sorry. Just wanted to know if her old lamp still flickered in some distant window. I didn't call back. I didn't delete the message either. I just saved it. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder that some people only ask questions when the silence becomes inconvenient. I went back to drying my hands, then walked into the living room and sat down on the couch I'd assembled by myself. It wobbled slightly on one leg, but I didn't mind. It was honest, imperfect, real. I stared at the ceiling for a long time that night. No TV, no music, just the sound of my breath in a room that didn't require me to shrink or perform. I hadn't vanished. I'd evolved. People think leaving means erasure. That starting over means forgetting. But it's not about forgetting. It's about remembering who you were before the weight bent your spine, before the noise made you doubt your worth. The new nameplate on my office door didn't change who I was. It just reminded me I never needed anyone's permission to matter. It came on a Tuesday. No return address. No name on the envelope. Just clean white cardstock and 4 neat words scrawled across the front in a handwriting I couldn't forget if I tried. Thinking of you. Isla. I stood there at the kitchen counter, fingers lightly pressing into the crease of the card, as if the pressure might make more sense spill out. There was no paragraph inside. No explanation. No apology. Just those words, floating on empty space, trying to masquerade as something meaningful. For a long moment, I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just let the card sit in my hand like a piece of evidence too delicate to rip apart but too useless to carry forward. The weight of it wasn't in the paper. It was in what it represented, the last gasp of a woman who hadn't said, "I'm sorry," in 3 years, but thought 4 words might fix what silence had rotted. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it out either. I walked to my bedroom, opened the top drawer of my dresser beside the socks, beside the receipts I hadn't filed yet, and slid the card inside. Not to save it, not to keep her close, but as a bookmark, a marker in the story of who I used to be. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting, and forgiveness, I learned, doesn't mean access. The card sat on top of the folded paperwork from my move, lease agreements, receipts from the moving van, a copy of the locksmith invoice from the old house. That drawer wasn't sentimental. It was a vault of transition. A quiet place to store the shift between who I was and who I had finally allowed myself to become. A few days later, I got another message. This time it came through an old mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to since the beginning of the unraveling. It was short. "Hey, man, I heard you disappeared. She's been posting again. Said she sent a letter. Just thought you should know." I read the text once. Didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Not to him. Not to her. Not to anyone still clinging to the hope that my silence meant confusion. Because I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't bitter either. I was done. Every now and then, a message would still find its way through. A friend tagging me in something by mistake. A birthday notification from someone in her circle. A forwarded flyer from the business Jasmine started. Her boutique candle shop, funded by someone else. Or maybe just another credit card waiting to collapse under entitlement. The first time I saw the name pop up on Instagram again, I almost blocked her. But I didn't. I let her float in the ether. Let her exist in the digital background like a rerun I no longer watched. Blocking her would have felt like I still needed distance. But I didn't. Because I had already gone too far to be reached. Carolina gave me peace I didn't know I was craving. It gave me mornings that started with silence instead of sighs. Coffee brewed without the sound of complaint. Laundry folded without eye rolls. Groceries bought without whispered judgment over brand choices or whether I should have gotten almond milk instead of regular. There was a kind of power in the ordinary now. One day, while organizing the hallway closet, I found a box I hadn't opened since the move. Inside were old birthday cards, some from Isla, most from coworkers, friends, people who meant well. I flipped through them slowly, wondering why I'd even kept them. One card, from our second year of marriage, caught my eye. It had a picture of a sunrise and a glittery font that read, "To more beginnings, with the one who makes me believe." Inside, she'd written, "You always show up for me. I hope I always show up for you." I folded it shut. She had stopped showing up, and I had kept showing up so long, I forgot I didn't have to. I tossed the card into the recycling bin, along with the others. Let them go with the week's trash. It wasn't bitterness. It was decluttering, cleaning house, removing the remnants of an old version of me who accepted crumbs and called it kindness. Later that week, a storm rolled through. Thunder shook the windows. Rain pounded the glass like a warning. I sat on the couch with a blanket and a book, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to fill the space beside me. I wasn't refreshing my phone. I wasn't hoping the storm would pass so someone else could pretend to notice me again. I was just there, alive, present, whole. The card stayed in the drawer, untouched. Not because I needed to look at it, but because I didn't. And that was the victory. Not revenge. Not pettiness. Just peace. She would go on. She would tell her version. She would sip her wine and nod along to her friends' pity parties. Maybe even tear up when she said, "He just left." But I didn't leave. I reclaimed my time, my space, my name. And somewhere, buried beneath all the noise, was the man I had silenced to keep her comfortable. He was louder now, steadier. Still, he didn't send cards to people who forgot him. He didn't beg for recognition. He built something better. And this time, it was his.